Before I go to Senator Cramer, Mr. Terry, when you answer the questions, you kind of turn your, if you could just put the microphone a little bit closer to your mouth, that we could hear you a little bit better. So, Senator Cramer.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Whitehouse. One of Cramer's convictions is, I refuse the notion that every transaction in this town requires a loser. And I think you're demonstrating that we can have winners all around. And let's hope that we as a committee can successfully provide that for you. One of the things that the government does really well is screws up the alignment of incentives. And in this case, we have an opportunity to line up all the incentives for the right thing. I have to say, Ms. Ross Hopper, first of all, thank you for emphasizing. I noticed a little extra emphasis on when you said, when you referred to non-subsidized energy, solar energy. And it's an important point, I think, because we're here not to talk about other policy. We're here to talk about the permitting process, whatever the energy source is, whoever paid for it. We've dealt with the subsidy side of some things previously. And so I think I feel good about where we're heading, and you're all really good witnesses to that. Now I'm going to ask a question that was, well, first of all, I want to speak for a minute to Clean Water Act and 401 permits, because I think you brought it up, Mr. Meyer. Help me understand how the new Trump WOTUS rule to comply with SACIT, how does that affect, how helpful can that be? And I honestly am just curious about your response.
Yeah, Senator, that's a great question. So it's definitely a step in the right direction and something that we're very supportive of, but ultimately it falls short of what we really need, which is a legislative fix to the way that Section 401 under the Clean Water Act has historically been weaponized, especially against interstate natural gas pipelines. So very supportive of it. It's a step in the right direction, but we need a lot more, and that's why it's such a high priority for us in comprehensive permitting reform.
Perfectly said. Mr. Bechtel, do you want to add anything to that from your perspective?
Just to add that the reason BRT has been so focused for over a decade on bipartisan permitting reform legislation is because that's what's required for the results to be durable. Executive actions are great, they're helpful, but of course they can be unwound by the next administration.
I would say, however, it does seem that with each generation, every time the Supreme Court speaks, we get closer to something that's durable. But important points. Thank you. I want to talk now about something that hasn't been talked a lot about. It's been referenced, partly because it's not all in our jurisdiction. The importance of linear permitting is obvious for infrastructure, and certainly electric transmission lines are part of that. However, there's this other part of transmission lines that relates to, of course, back my days when I was with the state of North Dakota on the Public Service Commission, and cited by the way the original Keystone pipeline through North Dakota worked with a lot of your members, Mr. Booker, and the company. We started that process really early too. And by the way, it wasn't even the hearings they were fascinating and they were interesting and they were very full. What was more interesting was the earlier part of the process where we went to communities and they laid out all the maps and all the smart people worked around the room. And I'll never forget the mayor of Park River, North Dakota going, I'm not sure, but I do think if you moved this pipeline a few miles to the east or the west, you could avoid the aquifer that provides all the water for our community. Smart move. And they fixed it before we had the hearing. The best was my farmer friend who showed up and said, I've never built a pipeline before, but it seems to me going through this quarry where we get a lot of gravel is not the best idea. A few miles to this side and you could avoid that. Two great, brilliant ideas that came from two normal people. I loved it. So you're right, starting earlier, I think what Senator Whitehouse talked about in terms of interagency role of states, all important. But on electricity, the large issue of cost allocation is and is going to continue to be a stumbling block if we don't find some common ground between utilities and ratepayers, and we can cite the infrastructure permitted, I suppose, and states, of course, have to play a major role in that. Anybody have a brilliant thought? Maybe start with you, Mr. Terry, given you obviously have a broad view of all of this, how we can get there.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question. The cost allocation issue, I think there clearly needs to be some more flexibility provided to FERC while respecting state jurisdiction and state roles. I don't think that there is an easy answer. One of the things that we have recommended at NASIO to both our state members and the Department of Energy on this topic is to make sure we have economic analyses that show the benefit to the state's consumers, not just from a rate perspective, but the overall economic benefit. And we think that there is something in that process to help inform the decisions both the state regulators are making and federal regulators are making that go beyond rates to additional value that we see.
Very good. Thank you.